of Ecclesiastes, another glorious book within the Old Testament. I love our background picture here. If you've ever driven on the 10 freeway, I believe it's the 10 freeway. I haven't lived in California for a few years, but you're going toward Arizona. Yeah, I think it's the 10 freeway. Anyways, there's these big wind turbines here. And this is fitting because the book of Ecclesiastes emphasizes that life is basically like a wind, right? Like a wind that powers a wind turbine. The book of Ecclesiastes. Let's go ahead and get started here. Alrighty. So, the title of Ecclesiastes in Hebrew, Kohelet, literally means preacher. And that's where we get the Greek word Ecclesiastes, and that also means preacher. And it's kind of like in other lectures we've talked about. Knowing the title of the book is actually like pretty useful. With Psalms, with Proverbs, the title sort of gives you a picture of what the book is all about, like what the main point is. And here, what we have is basically an old preacher giving us his final words, it feels like, on how to live. We don't know that he was old or etc. We think it was probably Solomon who wrote. We don't even know if he was old. But the feeling is a preacher giving us his swan song, in a sense, right? And we'll talk a little bit about the content here in just a second. But this flow. So Ecclesiastes begins with a general statement that all is vanity, and then really proceeds to address how certain pursuits are vanity, whether it's building, whether it's money, whether it's knowledge. Vanity, pointless. So, chronology. So, historically, King Solomon has been considered the author of Kohelet, and that would situate the book in the 10th century. Yet, Solomonic authorship, it's not a slam dunk, and thus the date of the book is inexact. And the reason for that is if you read Ecclesiastes 1:1, it just says the words of the preacher. That's why it's called Kohelet, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. But of course, this could mean Solomon, and he is the author of a lot of the wisdom literature, so it totally fits. It's just he doesn't literally say I'm the author. Plus, kings in general are typically referred to as sons of David, so that's why it's not exact. However, I would lean towards Solomon just because he's the primary author of Proverbs and he's the primary author of songs. And so, or not, maybe not the primary, he is the author of songs. All right, so big picture of Ecclesiastes. So, Ecclesiastes highlights the vanity of life's pursuits. So, the word vanity or pointless, they're synonyms, come from the Hebrew word hevel, and that word occurs about 38 times. So, that's clearly like the point of the book. If that word's being emphasized over and over again, it's probably what's being emphasized for a reason, right? And we see here, like in Ecclesiastes, the beginning, it says, vanity of vanities. Hevel of hevel, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes, and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. And we can see here from the context, it's like, well, what does hevel mean? It's like, well, it just seems as if it means something along the lines of it doesn't last. The earth remains forever, but what you create does not. So nothing you create lasts forever, has eternal consequence. You're just going to die, and so is the stuff you make. It's just going to go into the ground. So that's what I think Hevel is getting at here. It's pointless, vanity, yes. But the picture is it's vanity or pointless because it doesn't last. Unlike the sun that remains forever, God himself, right? And related to that, just as our pursuits are vanity, this is now transitioning to point number 2. Um, because everything is vanity and doesn't last forever, we also will die. Just in the same way our stuff isn't remembered, we won't be remembered. And we see this, for example, in Ecclesiastes 9. The preacher says, it is the same for all. All the good one is, so is the sinner, and he who swears as he who shuns an oath. So, in other words, hey, the same things can happen to the good person as it does the bad person. Verse 3, this is an evil, and all that is done under the sun, that the same event happens to all. Also, the hearts of the children of man are full of evil, and madness is in their hearts, while they live, and after that, they die. But he is joined with the living has hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. So Ecclesiastes says, the good person, the bad person, they all will die. And guess what? You'll just be forgotten. And that's the reality of life. And that is because everything is Hevel. It's a sobering reality. And that's why I love Ecclesiastes, because we all need to be remembered that we're going to die. And so what are some takeaways from this book? So first, you read the first 11 chapters and you're like, now what? Now what do I do? If what I build is really insignificant in the scope of things, even if it's awesome like the Eiffel Tower, doesn't really matter. It's because it's all going to just be forgotten. What if I learn 10 languages? Well, doesn't really matter because you're just going to die. What if I acquire a bunch of wealth? Doesn't matter. Can't really take it with you. So what do we do? I'll let you think about that for a few seconds here. What do we do if everything is vanity? Well, the preacher concludes with this: fear God and keep his commandments. That's pretty much it. The end of the matter, verse 13 of chapter 12. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every good deed, or every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. So what do? The author, the preacher says, you fear God, remember the fear of the Lord, you keep his commandments, because God will judge you for everything you've done. It's a sobering reality. That you will be judged for everything that you will do. And if there's anything I hope you've learned so far as we've gone through these lectures, though, is that there is hope. We all will stand before God, Christian, non-Christian. But you could either have the righteousness of Jesus or stand before God based off of your lack of righteousness. And I hope you would choose the righteousness of Christ.